How can you safely cut cords from family members when they're already cutting you out of their life? I really wish that I could spend the appropriate amount of time to really do a deep dive on this, because this is a very specific and subjective experience from client to client. But let's just talk about some really broad breadstrokes. Breadcrumbs. Breadstrokes. Okay, serious matter. When it comes to this, it does connect us to two things, to our shadow work and also to our contract work. When we are doing shadow work, the amelioration of those things that make us feel very uncomfortable, either through trauma, either through triggers, either through little bits of, wounding from parent wounding and societal wounding and all those other kinds of things that bring a sense of umbrage and a sense of guilt or a sense of woe or a sense of anger. Let's move on from that. We need to identify what the root and what the hook of that cord is. So think of a hook as the very end of a cord. I throw my fishing lure out into the sea, right? And at the very end of that lure is something to attract that energy to me, either through a fish or something like that. But cordings have hooks. Now, not all cordings have very, very strong hooks. Some cordings have very, very deep hooks, which means no matter what I do, whenever I think about these family members, my heart sinks. No matter what happens, whenever I'm engaging, even emotionally, not even just physically, when I'm thinking about an emotional engagement with these different kinds of individuals, my heart, my stomach sinks. That's a hook. And it is one of those intrinsic things to your bodies that you feel. What we want to do is to identify what that hook originates from. So for example, if you say to yourself, but what is it when I think about my mother and that large, dropping sensation in my stomach, what is the base of that? Now, this will take time to get there, but let's just say, for the sake of time, that whenever I think of my mother, I think of lack of trust. I did not trust her. No matter what I did, when I was a little child, she would say things and I did not find a strong amount of trust. So then what we need to do is then to take that shadow side, and in that excavation, we must communicate with that shadow side to the contract, to the soul contract. We need to go way beyond our belief system. We have to even contemplate and consider that it could be going into the genetic system. It could be going into the Akashic system. We want to go above all of those systems to communicate to what that contract is. Why am I contracted to have this lack of trust with this other individual? Why am I doing that? And throughout that, identifying what the trigger or the trauma was, and then identifying what the contract is, changing of contracts can be fast. Many people can change a contract instantly. Now, there's a whole process that it kind of comes along to that. There's different schools of thoughts when it comes to the processing of that. But in essence, when you change the contract, it changes inside of the DNA. It changes inside of the actual morphogenetics of the body, which means when you get to that contract change, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my body feels different. My mind feels different. When I think about them, all I can think about is I get to hold space for their learning. This is a question I really wish we could do more of a one-on-one something, but if this does spark curiosity, please feel free to ask more questions or come see me. Come see me.